What's going on, guys? Welcome into On Deck. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I appreciate you guys being active in the chat. Do me a favor, since you're here early, go ahead, like this video. It really helps me get it out to more people. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already to stay updated with everything going on with the Atlanta Braves, and of course all throughout baseball as much as I can. And of course, also share this with your friends. If you've been watching me regularly and you think some of your friends would enjoy it, go ahead, share it with your friends. That always helps me out, always gets me new viewers, and I really appreciate it. Doing a lot of growth here now that baseball season's heating up, finally, and also a normal baseball season. But before we get in, got to pay the bills real quick. Got to talk about my guys at Llerandi Gloves. If you haven't heard of these guys, go check them out. The link is right there. It's also in the description. Go check them out. Guys, these gloves are absolutely insane. And for the price, you cannot beat it, okay? I got mine. Go get yours. You can customize them all different colors, 18 to be exact. You can get your name on it. You can get your number on it right there. And I really think this is the best deal out there right now, personally. I really like the gloves. And don't take my word for it, but the rumor is your chance of being an MLB star when you grow up is double if you go get a Llerandi glove. So I would go check it out. But anyway, we got some things to talk about kind of behind baseball this week. Not a whole lot out there in spring training. No injuries, no anything like that, no major news. But there are a couple things that we can talk about. A lot of interviews that were done this week, and I'm going to steal some content tonight, mainly from 680 The Fan, because that's where all these interviews were done, but we got to talk about it. Anthopoulos came on and talked with those guys. Austin Riley came on and talked with those guys. Kyle Wright came on, and even President CEO of the Braves, Derek Schiller, came on and talked with those guys at 680 The Fan. So we're going to talk about each and every one of those. But first, we're going to start with Anthopoulos, just because I know that's the one you guys care about the most. And I've seen all those reports out there. I know they are out there about the Braves only having $5 million to spend, right? And that may be true, right? We're going to talk about that in a second, but it's not confirmed, first of all. It could be a possibility. I think there is certainly reason to think that the Braves are limited financially, but so is every other team. Every team is going through it. I mean, think about last year, right? The COVID season. You had no attendance revenue. You had very little merchandising revenue, you would think. So there wasn't a whole lot, going on for the Braves financially. So, of course, you're going to have a drop-off. But I think that the Braves are getting a little bit too much focus. I think a lot of teams are going through it. The Braves are probably possibly the only contender really going through it like this, but I would doubt that as well. Just because they're not spending money like the Padres doesn't mean they're struggling. I think they fixed what they needed to fix in starting pitching, right? They've pretty much already dealt with that. Their bullpen's going to fix itself, I believe, and their offense didn't need any help. So I don't think the Braves really need that much. Now, their depth could. Of course, you're seeing a lot of bench moves right now. You're seeing a lot of shifting at the bench, but that's by design, and I don't think there's any problem with that. But when I saw Anthopoulos came on to talk with Nick Cellini and Chris Domino, I had to listen. I had to know what he was going to talk about and what questions they were going to ask him. But on the report of the $5 million flexibility, I'm just going to give you the bullet points. He basically said, I love the way he started off with, well, you guys know me. When it comes to payrolls, I never disclose numbers. It impacts us in negotiations. Now, it's funny he says this, because I don't know if you guys caught wind of what's going on with the Mariners right now, but their GM pretty much disclosed everything to a Rotary Club. Pretty much put all the dirty laundry out there about holding guys back in the minors for an extra year of control. You're not supposed to say those things. So I think it's kind of funny the way he started off. But to focus more on the Braves, he also said, you're always going to want more. No team is flawless. He even mentioned the LA Dodgers. He said that team was not flawless, and he would bet money that they would have liked to add a couple more pieces down the road. In terms of the payroll, he credited Terry McGurk. We're going to talk about that in a second, but he credited him in saying that the payroll last year was the highest in the organization's history. Okay, last year. So they have plenty to work with, and they don't have to get higher and higher every year. Sometimes you already have what you need in a lot of aspects. I think the Braves are going to be just fine. He finished off by saying that, it's our job, being the front office, it's our job to get us back to the World Series and build a great team overall. So I think it says a lot about Anthopoulos as a GM that even when the pressure is on, when all eyes are on him and the Braves payroll, he continues to say we have plenty to work with. Later in this interview, like I said, he credited Terry McGurk of Liberty Media, and Liberty Media takes a lot of flack from you guys. I don't particularly like to do it, but they take a lot from fans. Just you should spend more, you should invest more in the Braves. But I think the fact that Alex Anthopoulos continues to credit them should make you feel a lot better about it. He doesn't have to say that. With that said, he's not speaking out on the accuracy of the number being $5 million, and I would prefer that over him disclosing everything, because I bet it does affect them in negotiations. I'm sure it does. And if you haven't seen that Mariners clip, by the way, go watch it. You'll be more proud to have AA running the Braves than you ever have before. Chris Domino actually asked him about the rumor getting out, the $5 million, whether or not it's true or not. The question was directed at, are you having a discussion within about having those conversations outside and things getting leaked? And, Alex Anthopoulos basically said, I don't mind this getting out per se, and we're not really, everybody knows where we're going. Everybody knows what the rules are. And to be honest with you, I think it was obvious, and he kind of insinuated this. I think it was obvious that the Braves were probably taking a little bit of a financial step back. I thought they would still add another piece, but he said that we backloaded Ozuma's contract for a reason, and I thought it was for a reason. I thought it was so they could go get more pieces, and I still think that's the case. Whether they be Shane Green, whether they be another bench bat, whatever the case may be, I still think they did that for a reason. And he said, obviously, our payroll is going to be lower in 2021 after having no attendance revenue. So it's pretty simple, right? And what he's saying here to me is simply that move should have indicated to most people that there are some limitations. And I mentioned that at one point, but I took it at that time more of a let's go all out approach, more so than a let's step back. And I still think that they're trying to have some flexibility to where they can make those moves if needed. But either way, the approach was to obviously conserve as much money as possible, to be as flexible as possible moving forward throughout the next season following the COVID season. So say what you want. The Braves are continuing to impress me, and they're continuing to make those AA patented under the radar moves. And I think they're underrated moves. Jake Lamb, Phillip Ervin, Travis Snyder, we're going to talk about that in a little later. They're not the Padres moves, okay? They don't have to be. The Padres have to compete. They have to compete with the LA Dodgers, World Series champion LA Dodgers, okay? They're in the same exact token as the Mets. The Mets are, of course, spending money. That's because the Mets have to compete with the Braves. They're in the same division. The Padres are in the same division as the LA Dodgers. So that's why they're in an arms race with the LA Dodgers. And I get the Mets and the Padres making those big purchases because they're competing with organizations that have built from the ground up, if you ask me, the right way, the most full way, if you look at it, obviously that's going to be more successful long term. And we're going to talk about something in a second that Alex Anthopoulos said that I really appreciated, and it shares the mindset I do. A lot of you guys probably wonder why I have so much, support of Alex Anthopoulos, because of the way he handles himself. It's a lot like how I would handle this, if I had a budget, or how I would try to handle it. But the Padres are, of course, in the same division as the Dodgers, and one of those teams goes to the postseason. The other may get a wild card game. That's the game, that's what they're going for. The Padres, they're either going for postseason, wild card game, or bust. Okay, so if I was picking right now, one of those teams are going to be a wild card, I think, but the other is probably going to be in the postseason because that's how good they are. And I think the Padres are better than the Mets. I think they're right there with the Braves at the moment based on the purchases they've made. And I think the Dodgers, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Padres are all right there. I know we've heard all that talk about the Mets. I'm not buying it because I've heard it before. And yeah, they spent a lot of money on Lindor, but that's one player, and I know one player can make a big impact, but I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I have got to see some results. There's more to it than one player. And I know the Mets have built a little bit, but I still don't think they're as well built as the Braves, in my personal opinion. But to me, the Braves, in my opinion, have improved for the 162 game format. In a 60 game format, you can get away with no pitching. We saw it last year. They did it. Okay? Almost went to a World Series with really 2 solidified starting pitchers and a third kind of right there, and then the rest was bullpen. You can't do that in a 162. So I think that they've improved in that regard. I think they're more of a full team. And who knows, if they're relatively successful mid-season and need a piece, who's to say Liberty Media won't splurge a little bit and give Alex Anthopoulos a little boost, if need be. And I think he's earned that trust. Reason being moves like this, right? He's not trying to just spend money out, while he can. He's handling his money responsibly. And I think he's earned that trust because of it. But to me, this isn't the first time this has come up. And to me, it's also a fundamental part of how AA runs a club. I like that, especially for a market the size of the Braves. I think it works well. I think it's the most successful way the Braves are going to operate. But also, he said this and I really liked it. We continue to get unbelievable resources. By Terry McGurk specifically. If you don't know who Terry McGurk is, he's the owner of Liberty Media. He's a very big part of the Braves' financial plan. He's basically giving credit to Liberty Media. And that's something I don't think happens enough in baseball and with the Braves. I don't think you guys hear that enough. And I'm not saying you guys, but a lot of fans give a lot of flack to Liberty Media, just unbeknownst when the Braves don't make a huge move. Well, it's got to be Liberty Media. I think that's unfair, and I think it's unfortunate. But they asked him, further questions. They asked him about, anything you've wondered about. Freddie Freeman's extension and coaching turnover. If you didn't know this, Snicker's contract actually runs out after this year as well. So, in a nutshell, AA said that, the players come first. We got to have those players at spring training. Got to get them ready. In terms of Freeman, both sides want it to happen. It just takes time. Sounds pretty familiar. He said basically the exact same line about Marcell Ozuna. So I would not worry about Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman is going to return. And I would be more than surprised if he did not. But he also had to answer questions about the lineup, right? The Braves lineup was stacked last season. And no DH this year obviously throws a little bit of a curveball at him. But, he basically said that he is a believer of the best players getting high up in the lineup. Ronald Acuna, number 1. Freddie Freeman, number 2. Marcell Ozuna, number 3. Travis d'Arnaud, number 4. And you move on to get as many at-bats. But, Freddie moved up to the 2-hole last season, and he's MVP this season. Donaldson did it in Toronto, MVP that year. So, Snit's going to end up making that call, and I think he'll make the right call, personally. That's exactly what Alex Anthopoulos said. Chris Domino actually asked about a guy that I've wondered when he's going to hit major leagues, Kyle Muller. Don't know how many of you guys have seen him, but he's got a great arm. He's a great athlete. He's got a pretty good slider, and he's developing that changeup. According to Alex Anthopoulos, that's what he's working on. But he came really close, according to Alex Anthopoulos, he came really close to getting the call last year. Obviously, right? As many struggles as we saw out of the Braves starting pitching, why wouldn't he potentially get that call? Right? He's, to me, right on par. Not to say he's as good as Ian Anderson, but when they had them televised, on the minor leagues televised, the guy Ian Anderson's pitching against was Kyle Muller. So you might see him, in the bullpen, but I'm excited about him long term. You might see him in the bullpen, but Alex Anthopoulos was actually asked about that, pressed on that, and he said that every young arm you want to see start as long as they can. So if Soroka, in my opinion, if Soroka doesn't get the call, I say doesn't get the call. If he's not ready by opening day, don't be surprised if you see Muller starting. Maybe not on opening day, but maybe in that first 1 or 2 rounds, he might be there. And why not? And then if he moves to the bullpen, okay. But every young arm you want to see start as long as they can. However, he also said that Max Fried, I don't know if you know this, Max Fried started in the bullpen. Max Fried he basically has cited that the bullpen is the reason he is as successful as he is now, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up in the bullpen. There's a lot of questions out there about the bullpen. I think there's a lot of depth, unknown depth. Kyle Wright's going to be in the bullpen, more than likely. A.J. Minter's coming back. I think you see Bryce Wilson, Kyle Muller in there if need be. But, it is what it is. I really think those guys are going to be successful in whatever way. It's going to take time, but I think they're eventually going to be successful. He was asked about Mark Melancon, actually, and if it surprised him that Mark Melancon left. You guys have probably all wondered this, so we're going to talk about it. He said that, and it felt good for me, because this is similar to what I said. He said that Mark Melancon was obviously great with us, but you got to make tough calls sometimes. And we knew that if Mark left, we had guys that could fill that role. I pretty much said that word for word. I said, obviously Shane Green's not here, but I said Shane Green could fill that role. A.J. Minter could fill that role. Will Smith could fill that role. A lot of guys, I think Tyler Matzik, Chris Martin, a lot of those guys could fill that role. But the young guys may emerge. Waskari Noah throws gas. I've always thought he could be a closer. There's a lot of unknown upside of young arms in the Brave system. And when you have a program, when you have an organization that has been built on pitching, you should expect nothing less. That's why your bullpen looked the way it did last year. That's why you had a lot of depth there. And unfortunately, the starting pitching took a big hit, but who would have expected that? I think the Braves are going to be perfectly fine. I think Alex Anthopoulos is giving you reasonable answers that, a lot of guys wouldn't give you, directly. And I think it's a very smart way to handle that organization. But they asked him about Jake Lamb. And Jake Lamb said that, or he said about Jake Lamb, rather, that he performed really well in Oakland. That was only a few years ago. He was an all-star there. And he thinks, he basically made a lot of swing changes. They've seen him. They've looked at him. And Alex Anthopoulos and his staff actually think there's a chance that some of these swing changes will stick and they will be helpful to his performance. He said his work ethic is great, and they think there's a lot of upside. So maybe they know something we don't. I think they probably do. And it offers some depth and flexibility, some that the Braves don't have right now. And he's on the same page with the front office. Jake Lamb is on the same page with the front office. And those swing changes he made aren't a fluke. That's what he said. So I'll tell you what else isn't a fluke. And that is the gloves made by Llerandi Gloves. And if you have heard me talk about this over the past few days, you already know that the best way for you to feel at home on the baseball diamond is by designing your own custom glove. Okay, these are high quality gloves made of the best leather. You can customize them, and one of the best things about them is you will not break the bank. Okay, that is the best thing about them. Check them out, www.LlerandIGloves, for a list of options and prices, and get your brand new high quality custom glove today. Go do that as soon as you can. But I'll tell you, that company is a personal favorite of mine. A lot of good people over there. Lou Llerandi over there has been great to me. Very good people, and they care that you like your product. Okay, so go check them out. Tell them I sent you. Okay. Moving on, though, the Braves have made a couple of moves. Some moves we need to talk about. They signed Travis Snyder, right? And people are wondering, why in the world would you sign a guy that has not seen the league since 2015? I understand. But the Braves, you got to realize that the Braves do not have a lot of depth, okay? They don't, in terms of the bench. They don't have a lot of right-handed hitters. They have a lot of left-handed hitters, but not a lot of solid left-handed hitters, I think. And I think they needed a right-handed bat. They needed a veteran. And, at the end of the day, it's competition. If nothing else, it's competition. It's a cheap risk. I don't see, especially if you're limited financially, I don't see a downside to adding that bat. I don't. Do I think he's going to hit Major League roster? No. But I think he's going to offer some competition in the minors, and I think it's worth giving him a shot, personally. It's $1 million if he makes the roster. You did the same thing with Felix Hernandez a couple years ago. I'm not really against it necessarily. But, that's not the only move made. They actually sent Jack Mayfield to the Angels for cash. There's a connection there through the management staffs. Both of them are pretty friendly. But they sent him there for cash, probably some cash the Braves need right now. And, that leaves a spot for a backup shortstop. I think that goes probably to Johan Camargo at the moment, if Dansby was to get hurt. But Personally, I don't think they need any more infielders. I think they need some. I think they probably need cash based on the rumors out there right now, even though they're not confirmed. It's looking like that is the case. But I do think that that's probably a decent move. He's not going to see any playing time this year, so it's not directly affecting you. But they also claimed Guillermo Heredia. He's an outfielder. They claimed him off waivers from the Mets. And they DFA'd him. He's 30 years old. He makes $1 million max. He is a .212 hitter, but against left-handers, he's .239 on-base percentage, .316. Scratch that. He's a .239 hitter. Against left-handed pitching, he is a .274 hitter with an on-base percentage of .337. Okay, so that means we're back to square one in terms of how we got to handle our hitting in with a 9-hole, right? If you got bases loaded, 2 outs, do you really want to put Sean Newcomb in there, or do you want to put a guy that can hit .274 against a left-hander? That's what this is coming down to. That's why you're seeing all these abnormal signings for the bench. I don't think they're abnormal. I think they're based on who can you hit against. What's your numbers against left-handed? What's your numbers against right-handed? Are you a switch hitter? That's the kind of questions being asked. And I think Camargo's a switch hitter. That's going to be successful for him. That's why you're going to see him on the opening day roster, I think. That's why you're seeing these signings now. But there were some other interviews. I know we talked a lot about Alex Anthopoulos, rightfully so. But some players were interviewed. A.J. Minter was interviewed. Kyle Wright was interviewed. Austin Riley was interviewed. Let's talk about Kyle Wright, though. Kyle Wright was asked, what are you focusing on in spring training? By Buck Bellew. And for me, this is the answer I wanted to hear. Kyle Wright was focused on being consistent. He said that even when he doesn't have his best stuff, he needs to give the Braves a chance to win by being consistent. And look, that's what I need to hear out of him. That's what he needs to work on. He's got good stuff, very similar to Sean Newcomb. He just has got to be consistent. He can't let the wheels fall off, at the first sign of trouble. And I think that's what they're going to work on him with. I expect to see something. I expect to see some results based on that answer. And I think that was a solid answer. But, we'll see what happens. Only time will tell. But I like that answer. I think that is for sure what he needs to work on. And he also added that, he learns more from his failures. We all know the failures last year, Game 3. We all saw it. I was there. I know it. But you can't hold that against him. You got to give them a chance to come back and do better. And these young kids are only going to learn with time, okay? And I think that extends to Austin Riley. Austin Riley talked about his adjustments today, okay? And he worded it in a pretty funny way. He said that, he was asked what does he think pitchers' game plans were going to be facing him this year. And he said that he thinks they'll challenge him. If you don't know what that means fastballs. That's what he means by that. He said that he kind of over-adjusted from 2019 to 2020. I think that's a very fair assessment. He said that he was able to make adjustments to off-speed because obviously that was his problem in 2019, right? But he got caught in the middle in 2020 on the hard stuff, and he wasn't able to decipher it. So he's working hard on a swing that is predominantly focused on the fastball, but then being able to recognize off-speed and adjust quickly. So I think Chipper Jones being in the clubhouse, he actually talked about this. I think Chipper Jones being there with him is going to be great for Austin Riley specifically because Austin Riley has learned from Chipper before. This is not a new teacher to him. I think Chipper can relate to him. I think Chipper has a lot of faith in him. And I really think Austin Riley is the type of hitter Chipper is going to be successful with, personally. I really think Austin Riley is a guy that has loads of potential that's waiting to be unlocked. I've said that so many times on this show. Y'all are probably sick of it. But I really think seeing Chipper with Austin. And, by the way, did you guys see what the Braves released the other day? Chipper talking to Camargo? That's another one. Camargo, unlimited potential, waiting to be unlocked. Okay? If he can just be a more consistent hitter. I don't need home runs. I just need consistent hitting. I think Chipper's a guy, ultimate pro. You look at the strikeout to walk ratio for Chipper Jones in his career, crazy. You look at the number of home runs, crazy. Hits, crazy. Hitting 300 on both sides of the plate. That's really good for a guy that's a switch hitter like Camargo, learning from a guy like Chipper Jones. I think Chipper is the best guy for the Braves. He knows the program, he knows the coaches, and he knows the players. Austin Riley being number one in my book. So I really think that's going to be good for him. He spoke on it. He said, and he was not directed to answer this way, but he said, without hesitation, having Chipper in the clubhouse is going to be good for me. So that's all I need to hear out of him. I think that's going to be a very good thing for him. And they actually, I thought it was kind of funny, they actually asked him about bringing Ozuna back, right? And he said, yeah, I'm more than happy to have Ozuna back. He's great in the clubhouse. He's great, on the field. And they asked him about working with him mechanically. And he said, Ozuna's got a very different swing, right? He's very, now I'm not going to say wild because it's very controlled, but it is a quick, through the zone swing, and it is a little wild, That's not really Austin Riley's style. It's not really anyone else's style. Ozuna's kind of one in his own. But regardless, Chipper is not that way. We all know that. I think, Riley's a little closer to Chipper. Reminds me a little bit of Troy Gloss. Reminds me a little bit kind of a Ryan Klesko in that way. A little bit more normal, upright swing than Ozuna. Ozuna gets that front hand out and kind of, finishes wildly to some degree. But, they asked him about, he said, I can't really work with Ozuna mechanically, but, he did say that he's great in the clubhouse. He's excited to have him back. But again, I think having Chipper in the clubhouse is going to be great for a number of Braves. Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, Johan Camargo. I think even a guy like Travis d'Arnaud to some degree. I don't think he needs much help. But not to mention the young kids coming up. Christian Pache, William Contreras if he hits the majors this year. If not, Alex Jackson or Shea Langoliers or a number. And if this happens for multiple years, I think you're only going to see consistency. So, personally, that's what I think. So, going further, the last interview we're going to talk about, then I'll get to some of you guys' questions, but the last interview we're going to talk about, the Braves actually interviewed 680 actually interviewed Braves president and CEO Derek Schiller. And this is something that I know a lot of you are curious about, so I threw it into the show more as a, let you guys know. They were talking about fans in the stands this year, right? And he talked about spring training, he talked about regular season, he talked about protocols, situations, whatever the case may be. He basically said in terms of fans in the stands that at spring training, they're mandated to have 25%. Okay, they're pretty much, not to say forced, but they're pretty much mandated. That's the limit, right? There's 1,800 seats, you get 25%. He said that this is more of a trial run, and by April 9th, being the home opener, we do anticipate to have fans at Truist Park on opening day, and I think that is a very good thing. I think that is something that needs to happen for revenue of Major League Baseball. For my personal sanity, I think it needs to happen sooner rather than later. He's not sure on a figure yet in terms of opening day. He said give him a couple of weeks for him to make up that decision. But he said, of course, safety is priority, which, of course, is true. Masks will be required. There will be sanitation stations, extra cleaning, increased airflow, all the right things. He said all the right things. But he also mentioned that they have some plans that have not been disclosed yet to honor Hank Aaron, Phil Niekro, Don Sutton, and Bill Bartholomew. Those plans have yet to be announced. He said that the number 44 will likely stay on the field this year, rightfully so. I think more needs to happen on the field. I think you guys would agree there. And I would like to see my friend Phil Niekro honored a little bit more, Don Sutton honored a little bit more, and of course Bill Bartholomew and Hank Aaron. I know Hank Aaron's the big one right now. I know he's the guy that everybody's kind of focused on nationally, but those other guys mean a lot to Braves country as well, and it's good to hear those names being talked about too, just from my point of view. But I want all those guys to be honored in some way because we didn't. It happened in the off season. We didn't really get a chance. There's 4 of them. They can't all get a patch this season. Something needs to happen, and it was a hard off season for us here in Braves country. So I would personally really like to see something. So Jameson, since you came in with a super chat, I'm gonna hit you first. Have to say that seeing Chipper Jones in the Braves dugout brings back so many fond memories of the Braves back in the day winning 14 straight. Was it 14 straight? Is that what it was? There was a lot of them. Yeah, it was 14 straight. But yeah, that makes me laugh because Leo Mazzoni always signs his name Leo Mazzoni 14 straight exclamation point. Having Chipper back, I just went on a whole rant about it, but having Chipper back, I think, one, brings back a lot of memories for me. I've shared every picture on my Instagram story that I've seen of Chipper's locker, Chipper talking with Camargo, Chipper on the field, behind the cage, whatever. I've shared it because it makes me happy. That brings me back, I hate to say it, but to my childhood to some degree, to see him on the field. But also, I think there's not a better mind in terms of hitting that the Braves have available than Chipper Jones. The guy knows it. And it's not just, you have a lot of hitters that are just good at it, right? That it can't really be taught. Marcell Ozuna, I just talked about him for a second. Marcell Ozuna, I don't think you can teach his swing. I don't think you can really teach Pete Rose's stance. You have a lot of guys like that. They know hitting. They know how to do it. But I think there's a lot of guys that I don't know for certain could teach it. Chipper is different. Chipper knows hitting inside and out. Similar to, I think, how Terry Pendleton is. Terry Pendleton knows hitting. He was MVP in 91. He knows hitting. And I think that, honestly, him being able to coach is a very good thing because he knows it. It is not just purely talent. It is being talented while being knowledgeable. And I think that is something that can rub off on a lot of these players. I appreciate the question, Jameson. Hope to see some more Super Chats in here tonight. Of course, that's the best way to get me to talk to you. I got a lot in here. But I wanted to start out, of course, with Trevor Herbertson. This is a name I've never seen before. So if you're new, I really appreciate you tuning in. Tell your friends. But he just said that he appreciates my content and favorite source for Braves news. I really appreciate that. I put a lot of work into these shows. I put a lot of work into this content, and I do a lot of thinking. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I do a lot of thinking on the side about the Braves, about this news coming out. Before I ever come live, before I ever really address it live, I try to think about every possibility. Before I make up my own mind, I really try to have my own approach to these thoughts. So I really appreciate that, Trevor. Chad, good to hear from you, brother. Jameson already smashing that like button. Yeah, reminder. Do me a favor while you're here. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and of course, as always, tell your friends about it. Chad also says Sunday at 1:05 p.m. Can't wait. I believe it will be on the MLB app. I'm not entirely certain. I'll try to put out something on the community channel when I find out. But I'm pretty sure it will be on the MLB app at 1:05 p.m. But don't quote me on that. A lot of talking here about Alex Anthopoulos. Not really anything I can add to what I already said, but I think if nothing else, his interview the other day pretty much tells you can trust him with your money. If nothing else, the Braves are obviously going to take a step back in terms of how much finances they have. Just due to, look, coronavirus affected absolutely everything out there right now. So I don't think you should be surprised. I don't think you should be upset. The Braves are doing what they can. Think about it. That's millions of dollars. Think about how much money you spend at the Braves game, right? They're still having to pay people. They laid off a lot of guys last year. A lot of of the ushers you see, a lot of those people, they laid them off because they couldn't afford to pay them. Okay, so minor leagues, another one. Minor leagues couldn't afford to pay a lot of the minor leagues, so they just all of a sudden stopped minor leagues. So I think you got to realize they've lost a lot of money, but I think every team has lost a lot of money. I don't know why the Padres have so much of this right now. I think they must have saved up for a couple of years, but it's a crazy thing to see. But look, they're coming off a year where they spent the most money ever as an organization, and yeah, I know inflation obviously is a factor of that, but you're not going to tell me that's not, that it's changed so much in the past decade that should happen. I really think that they're investing in the team now. They realize the time is now in the future. And Alex Anthopoulos, just to add something here, Alex Anthopoulos said something that relates to me and the way I think about the Braves and the way I think about baseball in general, right? He says he gets the heat from fans wanting to go all out and, all out. He says that's not the right way to approach it in his opinion. It's not the right way to approach it in my opinion, honestly. I think, and I've always thought, that the best way is to give you a good product for a long period of time. That is the best way to win a World Series. That's what he said. He said that I think giving you the most chances to win a World Series is best. The Braves had a great team last year, a team that could have won a World Series. They had a great team the year before. They've made the postseason 3 years in a row, looking to do it a fourth. I think that they could have done it last year, and he actually related back to the 90s Braves for you older crowd. Unfortunately, that was before my time, but For you older crowd, he related it back to 91, 92. You remember those teams. Teams that were arguably better than the 95 team. Worst to first at 91, 92, 96, arguably. 99. There are teams that were arguably better that didn't win. So he says, instead of going all in on one postseason run, let's go all in on 5 to 6, 7 to 10. Have a decade long of success, potentially longer. 14. Why not 14? Why not 15? Right? Let's be successful in that regard. And they have talent to do that. They have talent to carry them through that. And I think you got to believe in some of these talent pieces. You got to let some of them go because they cost too much. But at some point, you got to realize that the best chance for the Braves to win a World Series or multiple World Series is to invest in a long period of time. So, yeah, I really think that is what it is. Based Alaska asks, after going to the NLCS game last year, what do you think of that new ballpark? I love the old stadium in Arlington. Yeah, I actually went to the old stadium in Arlington, too, a few years back. I might have been about 16, 17. But, yeah, I love that stadium. They fed me like the biggest hot dog I've ever had. But, yeah, I mean, that stadium was really nice. It was a classic. I loved the hotel piece in center field. I really loved that about it. I think it has a classic look to it, similar to Baltimore in a lot of ways. But look, the new stadium, if you want to go, it's crazy. It's Truist Park in a way with a closable roof. I would relate it more so to Houston. I know they're both in Texas, but I would relate it to Houston just in a way. It's really nice on the inside, and it has a way, it has that closed roof potentially. That's the closest one I could relate it to. Maybe Milwaukee to some degree, but in terms of environment, in terms of everything else, you got to relate it to Houston. It's a little bit more bland than Houston because Houston, of course, has the former train station next to it and train in the outfield. It's a little bit more bland, but in terms of just ballpark atmosphere, I would relate it to Houston to some degree. I'm trying to think of another one I could relate it to. Most of the stadiums I've been to are on the East Coast and have pretty decent weather. Of course, Texas is super hot, so they have to kind of go through their own little thing. But I'm thinking maybe Milwaukee. It's crazy because it's mainly built to glass. If you look at pictures, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's mainly built to glass on the outside, so it's a really crazy environment. And of course, you walk through a tunnel and there you don't even walk through a tunnel. You just walk in and there's the outfield. It's kind of a crazy experience to see, but I really liked it personally. What do you think about Ronald Acuna Jr.'s weight loss coming into the season? Will it take away from his power or speed, or will it have a neutral effect? Ronald Acuna, honestly, is so talented, I'm not worried. I think he's probably more fit. I hate to say it that way, but I think he's probably more fit. It might add to his speed. It might take away from his power, but I think he's going to be fine regardless. That guy's so talented naturally. I'm not worried. I don't think most of his power comes from pure muscle. I think a lot of his power comes from his swing. Of course, some of it comes from natural ability, but I think a lot of it comes from that swing. I truly do, and it's such a quick swing. I really think a lot of that comes from his swing naturally. Jameson, I hear from you again. I hear from you a couple times tonight. Hope Austin Riley is ready to unleash his thunder bat over all those pitchers. If Austin Riley connects, man, he can take it 454 feet. I don't know how many of you guys remember, but the guy's got potential. He's got the power. He's got potential. He's got a good bat. Just got to learn on deciphering those pitches. But I think he's going to do just fine this season. So it's nice that the media is not giving the Braves the respect they deserve, just like how they did the Spurs before they became a dynasty. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say that I think the media realizes those models they use are off, because every time I turn on MLB Network and hear them talking about the Braves, it's, man, why do you think these models are so off on the Braves? Because they've been off for 3 years in a row. They're off, if you ask me, they're off on a fourth year. So I'm okay with it. I think it's bulletin board material. I think the players think that. Austin Riley talked about that in his interview with 680. He talked about that, and he said that, it's a motivator. We got things to prove to people, and that's fine. We did it last year. We'll do it again. So I am more confident when I hear things like that. So we'll see what happens. But personally, I think the Braves are going to be fine, whether people believe in them or not. Ronnie asked if the autograph of the day is coming. It is. I have one selected out. It's a baseball. I'll foreshadow it with that. But we got some more comments to get through before we get there. Chipper Jones going to give a wealth of information. Yep, I agree. I agree with Camargo being a switch hitter. I agree. But I also think Austin Riley. Philip Powell, according to our Braves ticket account manager, the Braves will make an announcement early in March about fans in the stands. Can't wait to go back to Truist. Yeah, my only announcement for you in that regard, Philip, is that there will be fans in the stands on opening day. Unless something changes, according to Derek Schiller, Braves president, is that there will be fans in the stands. I expect at least 25%, just based on the fact that spring training is allowing 25%. I think it'll probably be more because they are mandated 25%. I think if the Braves are allowed to have more, they're certainly going to because, frankly, money talks. But, that's their trial run. I think they'll try to add to that throughout the season, maybe getting up to 75 at some point, maybe getting up to 80, 90, 100. We'll see. But I think you will have fans in the stands the entire season. I think baseball can't afford to continue to do what they're doing. The NFL's managing to have fans in the stands. The NBA is now managing to have fans in the stands. I don't see why baseball can't do it either, especially considering they're an outdoor sport. So we'll see what happens. But I think you can expect to buy some opening day tickets there, Philip. Appreciate it, bud. I don't think the Padres lineup has enough promise. I don't know. The Padres, you got to give them credit, man. The Padres are really making some big purchases. They got Tatis, who's Acuna in his own right in a lot of ways, but I question their ability to beat the Dodgers. I question all this money being spent because if they are going all in, they're paying Fernando Tatis, who has yet to have a full season under his belt. No knock on him, but he's yet to have a full season under his belt. They're paying him $300 million. That's a big commitment. And I'm not saying he hasn't earned it. I'm not saying he hasn't earned it. But that's just one of these major purchases. And they don't mind spending money. I saw an update today saying they're going to spend some more. So, give credit where credit's due. They have the ability to spend money. But do they have the ability to beat the Dodgers? And if need be, do they have the ability to beat the Braves? Do they have the ability to beat the Dodgers in a 162-game race? I question that. Not because they're not built, as well as the Dodgers are, in my book. They're not built as well as the Braves are. And if they do they do it for the next 5 years? Do they do it for the next 10 years? I highly doubt it. Somebody's going to fall off, and you're going to have to... Okay, for example, the Braves' biggest contract out there right now that's relevant is Ender Inciarte, right? Not biggest contract, but biggest contract that's not being used in the proper way is Ender Inciarte. It's $8 million a year. Okay, to ride the bench. Do I think it's a little much? Yes. Do I wish we could get rid of it? Yes. However, the Braves gave that to him after he got 200 hits, and he was an all-star. So, do I think it should have been a shorter one? Probably. But I would much rather take that than if Fernando Tatis was to fall off or hit a point in his career 5 years from now where I'm having to give him an extra decade of $300 million money, and I just question that method. I think that the way Alex Anthopoulos handles his business is responsible, is the most appropriate way to handle business. And look, San Diego's got money to spend. They've showed that. The Mets have money to spend. They've showed that. But I question that mentality. Just from a principle standpoint, I question that mentality. Because let me ask you this. If you had $100, right, how would you build your team? Would you spend 40 of it on one player? Or would you spend 10 of it on a decent player? Or actually, would you spend 20 of it on 3 decent players, right? There's a way to handle money. And I think that in sports, a lot of times, we just throw money at people. A-Rod was the first big one I can really, relate back to. Mike Trout made $400 million a couple years ago. Bryce Harper, don't get me started. Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado. Anytime one of these big free agents rolls around, we just throw money at them. And I don't think that's the right way to handle it. I don't think that is, the best way to win. Honestly, I just don't. And I never will, if you ask me. But we'll see. I think you got to give credit to the Padres, though. Louis S., I enjoy your channel. I hope to get to some games this year. Go Braves. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys watching. And, I really appreciate that comment. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Jesus, how do you feel about the signing of Jake Lamb, Phillip Ervin, Smiley, etc.? I think the Braves have done as best they can through whatever limitations they have. The rumor right now is $5 million. Right? That is the rumor at the moment, that the Braves have the ability to spend. But I don't know how true it is. It hasn't been confirmed by the Braves. It won't be confirmed by the Braves. If that's the limitation, I think they've done excellent. That they have $5 million to spend. They fixed their starting pitching. Their offense didn't need a whole lot of help, with the exception of the bench. And I think Jake Lamb's a guy who could surprise a lot of people. I think Phillip Ervin could I think Phillip Ervin could surprise some people. Smiley, I think the Braves really believe in him, and if he doesn't turn out to be anything, he's on a 1 or 2 year deal. I really think that it's going to be. I honestly think the Braves have done a very good job, and if they're limited in the way we all assume they are, I think they've done an excellent job. When do you think Freddie Freeman is going to fall off? I think that's a very subjective. I think that's a very subjective question, because falling off, everybody looks at Pujols right now and says he's fallen off. Of course he's fallen off. He's 40 years old. Chipper Jones fell off at one point. If you really want to be technical, they're not going to be what they always were. If you relate back to his MVP season in 5 years, yeah, he's fallen off. But I think if Freddie can be a consistent hitter, I don't think there is a falling off. I think there is an aging process. But to answer your question, I really think we have another 5, 7. He's what? How old is Freddie? I mean, he doesn't look a day over 30 to me, but I think you have at least another 3 to 4 years with him, being a really good hitter. Probably more than that. I think I would lean more 5 to 7, because Freddie's not all power. He's some power, but he's also a very consistent hitter. And I think you have to take that into account. But I think you got a little while before you got to worry about that. I think you'll see a long-term deal next year too. Base Alaska said Globe Life Park looks like a Costco from the outside, but he's excited to go there. Once you get in, man, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's like an amusement park. It's crazy in there. You'll see what I'm saying. Let me know when you go. Ronnie says models are off because of the immeasurables, chemistry, heart, etc. Yeah, and they're off because I don't think a lot of people assume you can't measure prospects. You can't measure Christian Pache. You can't measure Dansby Swanson. You can't measure that. Austin Riley, Max Fried, Mike Soroka. So I think when the pitching fell off last year, everybody just thought the Braves were going to croak. And then you had Ian Anderson come up. You can't measure Ian Anderson. You don't know what Ian Anderson is. And he showed you that. He showed you what he can be. And I think Kyle Muller will be similar in that regard. I think a lot of those young pitchers will be similar in that regard. But there are a lot of immeasurables. And I think the biggest immeasurable is depth in your prospects. And I think that's a very good point. Corey Naylor, are you the same guy that let Josh use your live stream? All right, let me explain real quick. I have a buddy of mine. I say buddy, he's more of a mentor of mine, Josh Pate. I actually used to direct his show, The Late Kick with Josh Pate. And he's now with 24/7 Sports. We used to work together. He's taken me he's taken all the college football games I get to go to is because of Josh Pate. But he's a very good guy. He calls me yesterday. I'm just going to tell you a quick story. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I'm going to. He calls me yesterday. He goes, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Nothing." I'm expecting him to ask me to go do something. He goes, "I need to use your studio tonight." I'm like, "Okay." And he came over last night and used the studio. He was in town. He's based out of Nashville these days, but he came over and I took some of the baseballs down because he runs college football show. But that's why you see these over here is because he was here last night. But yeah, I did that. I pretty much I didn't think you guys would see that, but I appreciate it. He must have. Yeah, he did. I appreciate it. That was funny. Let me see. Just keep on sleeping on the Braves like usual. We'll just be over here polishing our National League East championships. Yeah, I really think, the Braves are going to be just fine this year. Whether they win a National League championship or not, the Braves are going to be just fine. I think that they're my favorite to win it. I don't think there's a reason to assume them to not win it this year, and I think that's what those models are doing. I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're selecting the Mets to win the National League East. I think they're a little overboard in that regard. They've certainly made some good moves, but I think that's a bit overboard. I think Morton will be big in the clubhouse for the young pitchers. Yeah, I think he'll probably be good for a guy like Ian Anderson, a guy like Max Fried. I think Mike Soroka's pretty much found his balance. Obviously, he's got to recover, but if you see Kyle Muller this year, I think that'll be really good for him. A guy that's just breaking into the league, or Kyle Wright, who's struggled to have consistency. Charlie Morton, if nothing else, is consistent. We talked about Kyle Wright wanting to be more consistent this year. If nothing else, Charlie Morton is consistent. So I think that would be really good for a guy like him. Bryce Wilson, in the same token, potentially in the bullpen. I think that'll be really good. The Braves are still paying Bruce Sutter. Yes, they are. $1.2 million every year. But yeah, I really think the Braves are going to be fine. I got to wrap it up there, guys. We're going to do autograph of the day real quick. But we're going to do that real quick. But before we do, one more time, go support these guys. Llerandi Gloves. One more time, I'm going to show you this glove. Look at the stitching on this thing. I absolutely love it. If I had this when I was in elementary school, I would be in the MLB right now. Go check them out. Good leather, good prices. You can't beat it. Good service as well. So go check them out. Link and phone number are right there. But we're going to move into autograph of the day real quick. And it's, this is a pretty good one. I think it's pretty relevant since all this talk about the bench has come up with the Braves. I'm only going to show you part of it. It's a baseball. It's Charlie Culberson. I hope you can see it. It's Charlie Culberson, right? Pretty normal autograph for the Braves fan to have. But the cool thing about this, I actually got him to add an inscription. If you know who Charlie Culberson is, you know how much of a favorite he is. But he was a favorite, I think, before he ever got to the Braves, when he was with the Dodgers. And I'm no Dodgers fan. Let me just state that. I am not a Dodgers fan. But there is nothing like turning on a game and hearing Vin Scully. To me, the most professional broadcaster in recent memory, in a very long time. And he retired a few years ago. I believe back in like 2017, 2018, he retired. And Charlie Culberson hit a walk-off. Of course, he's Charlie Clutch. This is kind of the beginning of that. He hit a walk-off that was Vin Scully's last call. And I added this to the ball. And I hang on, let me see if you guys can see it. Vin Scully's last call, right? So, Charlie Culberson, Vin Scully's last call, and it's one of my favorite pieces. Charlie Culberson, of course, I interviewed him a couple of years ago. I hope you guys can see that. But I interviewed him a couple of years ago. Nicest guy you can find, and I just absolutely love this piece. Vin Scully's one of my favorite broadcasters. Charlie Culberson is one of my favorite people in baseball. And it's just a really fun piece for me. So I thought I'd share that tonight. Of course, we do autograph of the day every live broadcast. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you like this video. Get it out there to Braves fans. Get it out there to baseball fans. If they want to disagree with me, bring them all on. I'll take it. Get this out there, though. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. By the way, I saw some of you guys came in late today. No big deal. But if you don't want to come in late, the best thing you can do is hit the bell for notifications. Okay? You know where it's at. Go hit that bell. They'll tell you when I'm coming on live. Say the moment I hit live. So go do that. Get on there. We'll be glad to talk with you more in the chat on the, in the future. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Again, share this with your friends. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next Monday, probably, maybe sooner, but more than likely next Monday. We'll be reacting to what we see Saturday. Or is it Saturday? I believe it. No, it's Sunday, 1:05 p.m., spring training. Braves versus the Rays. So we'll check back in with you maybe Sunday night. If I can, I'll try to be here. But if not, I'll see you Monday. I'll be happy to be here on Monday. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Gonna check out here now. See you guys Monday.